right. Well, thank you, Jana. Thank you, Jana, for jumping on and spending a couple minutes with me going over, this awesome post that you kind of posted on LinkedIn. And as you said yourself, it kind of went viral in a sense, off of the Alex Hormozi's script for writing offers and services. Can you explain like where kind of the idea for this post came from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a very big fan of Alex Hormozi, and then whatever comes up that has a name like signed by Alex Hormozi, whatever, I want to read it, soak it up. I want to try it out. So this was a prompt for ChatGPT, which kind of helps explaining what you do, like what services you offer, how to kind of pitch in like a non-traditional way. So I decided to give it a go with my agency called Wild Tea Translations. And then I got a really like a sweet post that I kind of want to give to my sales manager so he remembers that and kind of just like uses all of that and the whole narrative when we speak to new clients. And I decided to post it on LinkedIn. And then it turned out to be something that so many people found value in. And I think I got like over probably like around like 5,000 impressions.
Wow.
Which is a lot after how LinkedIn now kind of cut in half. All the reach went down, but the engagement went up. This is like something that happened with the algorithm a couple of months ago, which I also saw as well. But I got over 80 comments, and a bunch of people just reached out to me to ask me either about our services or about the prompt if I can share it. And so I was just kind of really surprised by how well this post performed, and I would recommend anyone to just kind of try it out and see how better you can kind of present what you do. It doesn't have to be an agency, maybe something that you do on your own, or maybe it's your hobby, or just kind of to reach more people. It was a really good prompt for that.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I jumped right on it when you posted it, and that's how we got connected here.
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
transitioning to your services, I was going through your website, and I just found it so interesting. Like, how did you find like this as a need in the e-commerce space? Why is this something that people would want to, definitely do for their e-commerce business?
Right. Well, that's a solid question. First of all, I have a really big experience working in e-commerce industry. For 8 years, I was a COO in one of the leading European companies in Scandinavia and Denmark. They were also like selling on Amazon. This was like 10, 12 years ago. This is the first time I've heard the words buy box. And then they were not that interested in Amazon as their sales channel because they were doing so well selling on like on their website, and they just had like other means of sales. But I got personally very interested in Amazon, and then I was like, okay, like how do we make this better? And they were selling across Europe as well, in the States. And then I have background in languages, I actually studied languages. I kind of got this idea that I'm gonna like hire someone from our call center. We had 15 different web shops across 15 different countries. So we did have like 15 different call center groups that were native in those target languages.
Right.
So I gave them like listings, which were very simple at that point. At that time, like 12 years ago, there was no A+ content.
Right.
It was very much like title, bullets, product description, very like basic. According to, today's standards. And so I gave every single group, I told them like, can you like translate this to French, Spanish, Italian? And they did translate. At that point, there were also no tools. So we used Google AdWords to kind of dig out some of the keywords.
That's
and then,
smart.
Yeah. And then we kind of like put like one keyword in title, maybe two in bullets. And then, and that's when I saw that something changed. Like we got like more impressions and the click-through rates were higher. And I was like, there is definitely something happening with this. I know a lot about SEO, like Google SEO. This was like a much simpler version of SEO that you need to, because you do need to optimize content the same way you need to optimize content on Google. So you make sure that your web page or your products on Amazon pop up before your competitors. A lot of different companies, they were not utilizing any sort of like SEO tools or anything like it for their Amazon listings. And then shortly after that, I quit my job and I was ready to start something on my own. Like I was like, I really think this is like a good niche. And, from what I've learned at that time, like from my working experience and just like talking to other people, finding a niche is everything. Like, do not go too broad, but like if you find a good niche, you can find yourself like a really good business. And this is what I did. Like, I kind of first thought that I'm going to offer e-commerce optimized translations and localization, and we also offered as well the Amazon as well. And then at that point, I started getting more and more inquiries for Amazon. People were asking me like, but you do e-commerce as well and also Amazon, how do I know that you are Amazon experts at all,
Oh.
because you offer so many things. And I was like, that's a good point. When people will go to our page, it'll be like, oh, they only do Amazon, they must be really good at what they do because they only offer this little niche.
Yeah.
And this was a complete like game changer. Even though we were not well known in the space at that point, it kind of like felt as we were the experts who know what they're doing because we would only do that and nothing else. No PPC, no other content, only Amazon Global Marketplaces, specialized agency for that. And this is what people really liked. And that's the first time I understood the power of finding a specialty niche that will make people think that because you only do this like small part that you really are best at what you do. I always strive to provide the best possible service with me and my team. And then that's what started happening. And then nobody was speaking about that in the space. Then I started reaching out to influencers and people who had their channels and like I was, putting up more videos. And then I realized that people have no idea what's the importance of the SEO on Amazon, because usually people who sell on Amazon, they don't know anything about SEO on Google. And then I thought like, well, this is a no-brainer. Of course, you have to have keywords and optimized listings in all of the other languages, not only English. But it seemed like that nobody understood the importance of that because they did not speak the other language. So English was important for them, but selling in Germany, like how content sounded like, was not relevant for them because they did not understand it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, content is content no matter what language it's in. And then we showed the first results and people were using mostly Google Translate or just translating the keywords they were using in the US as they were just translating them to German. And then those were not exactly keywords that you would use in German because in order to make keyword list for a German market, you would have to do it from scratch. And nobody was doing that because they were just like, well, word by word translation works good enough. There was like no localization, nothing. And then I just kind of really started educating people on the matter because it's very simple, but nobody thinks about it. Because every time when I would speak at a conference, I would have someone from the audience, reach out after my talk and say like, wow, this is like, it makes so much sense, but I never thought about this. But like when I heard you talk and like show these case studies, it's like insane that we thought otherwise and that we just used machine translation to like do that content that way. And I was like, thank you. Yes, this is absolutely true. not because it's my service, but that's just how it should be. Like that's how it should be done. And all these like big brands doing that well on Google and being ranked for top keywords they want to be relevant for their websites are using absolutely the same strategy that we're using just on Amazon products.
To your point, you can use Google Translate. That's fine. I'm from California, and I worked with a buddy of mine, partner with them, and we were doing translations in Spanish. Google Translate works. I grew up in a southern part of California. A lot of Mexican culture there, and that's just I know what I know. But we had a girl who she was Mexican. And there was a huge difference from what I wrote and what she wrote was completely different. She's like, yeah, it made sense, but it wasn't readable. It wasn't a customer experience. Like I was just word. It wasn't reading right. And it's so interesting the way you said that because it's so true. Like, yes, we can use Google Translate. We can do that all day, but for it to make actual meaning and for it to be a readable, title, bullet points, especially with the SEO today, SEO, I'm assuming because I never done anything across in Europe or anything, but I'm assuming it's the same algorithm that Amazon's using on .com that it's using with the SEO we do in .com on USA has to be the same thing in Europe, has to be the same thing across in Japan. It's the same thing, but readable. in where that's where the conversion rate comes into play. You talking about conversion rates, I know you mentioned that post too that you guys offer custom content and keywords. Can you go into because I know there has to be a difference from what Americans view as good content to what maybe Germans see as good content. Can you go into the custom content part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important thing that you mentioned Mexican Spanish, because a lot of brands think that like if they want to sell in Spain, they can use the same copy. So you can't use Mexican Spanish in Spain. Actually, like if you ask Spanish, like European Spanish folks, like they will be upset if they saw something written in Mexican Spanish and being offered to them as a target market. They kind of really do not like enjoy reading that. And it kind of gives like this like negative feedback. So you really don't want that when you like, spend all this money and all of that, like in order to like go over to Europe. So you also have to be careful about that. People love buying from a local brand. I mean, let's say you're a US brand and you use like your Mexican copy to approach Spanish audience in Spain. They would feel like they're buying from an overseas brand. They don't want that. They want to buy from a local brand that it feels close to them, that understands them, that speaks their language. So when translating something, you don't have to like have bad results only with Google Translate. Like you can use like a translator that doesn't know anything about Amazon and nothing about keyword research or the lengths of the titles or bullets or the categories or the health issues or health claim problems and all of that. And they will just do the word-by-word translation, which also will not resonate well with the target audience. So what you have to do is like to find someone who understands how Amazon works and how to do translations in a way it makes sense to the target audience using localization. So localization means exactly what you said. Like, would this sound the English content sound same to Germans when translated or not? This is a really good example because German US salesy style has nothing to do with German style. So Americans can sound very, salesy and fluffy and all this, but Germans hate that. Like they don't want you to like have this emotional like narrative, like use these espresso cups like your grandma used when in front of her fireplace 30 years ago. They're like, I don't want to hear any of this bullshit. Like I want to know if this is high quality and will it burn my fingers because it's a glass espresso cup when I hold it. Like I want to see like the benefits, what's good, what's bad, key features, will it fit into my kitchen or not? And let me be the judge of like, if this is a good product or not. They're like pretty much like black and white, straight to business, show me the benefits. They don't want this like narrative that you have like in English. And there are a lot of times where you will have to change the text a lot in order to adjust it to, let's say, German audience. And I remember there was this payment service provider, Payoneer. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it. And they were exhibiting in Germany. And one of their like best selling points was like, we have a humble approach to audience or customers. And then we couldn't say humble. We could use the same word for to present that to Germans, because humble customer service does not sound good. It's kind of something you connect with the hospital, and it doesn't sound professional, like as a professional e-commerce service. So we had that to professional service instead of humble service. We didn't say care. We said respond very well and stuff like that. So you have to fine tune a lot of words that you think are not important that actually are. It will make a big difference. So there's a lot that you need to change for your target audience to understand it and to buy from your brand. Let me just kind of like close this tab and go to the next competitor. You need to fully understand 100% what you're buying, how to use it, what are the ingredients. Then I have a lot of videos on my LinkedIn where I analyze like brands and like both big and small, and just like showing what went wrong and what they could do better. And it's 99% something that repeats all the time. Like, for instance, big brands don't care a lot about content on Amazon because, like, there are, I don't know, Adidas. Like, why would we care how they sound on Amazon? And then you can beat Adidas a lot of times because sometimes they will have a product that's not that well known, and your product might like do better on a content level, so they can get like more clicks or better rankings. I would see like a very famous brand, and they would write the same ingredient name twice.
Right.
because they didn't check, because someone did a bad job, like, while translating. So that's always, interesting. But also, like, when it comes to English, you have differences between American English and UK English. And we had one seller, and she was selling baby diapers, and she just copy pasted that very same content, and she launched the product in the UK. And then she was not doing well, and she got like some weird results. For instance, she would get like that people were searching for adult diapers and stuff like that in the UK. And she was selling kids diapers with, like, like little birds and bees and hearts. People don't think about it. They don't think it's relevant. But for instance, in the keyword diaper in the UK is used for adult diapers only. So see, she should have changed that to nappies, because nappies are something that kids use.
I
And
learned something
diapers is
new.
something that
Wow.
adults use. Yeah. And this can cause a lot of bleeding to your brand, money wise, and like all sorts wise. And I think this is something that you should always check beforehand. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, but if you see something like nappy showing up in your keyword list, just like, search that word and see why is it there. Because a lot of times when there's some irregularities or something that you're like completely puzzled by, you can just like double check that on Amazon. Maybe this is something that you should use for that marketplace. You don't have to hire anyone to help you with that. You can, if it's English, you can do it on your own. So it's really not that difficult to avoid all these mistakes, which I see repeat over and over again. Everyone speaks English, but also according to Harvard Business Review, 52% of people like in the world, they do not speak English on a high level. Also
Right.
comes like to Europe, it's also about 50%, which means that you're targeting every other customer instead of every single customer.
That's a
Because
key
people,
metric.
yes, because people are highly unlikely going to buy what they don't understand fully.
Yeah.
So if you have a complicated product, let's say, going back to supplements, if there's something they are not sure what it means, they're probably not going to buy it. And that's going to be a problem for your brand. And that's why I always advise that you should translate everything you have in your main images to the target language, because images and the title are something that the consumers will see immediately. Main images and the title are something that is really, really important. And if that's written in their target language, then of course it will catch their attention. Maybe they will choose that product over someone else that has English main images, which I also see a lot. I think it's like 50-50% that a brand has that translated to the target language. But that will be the first thing that will catch someone's attention when someone's like abroad, or, just imagine like,
Yeah.
you're browsing like a Spanish product, and then this is written in Spanish and you have no idea what it means, and you're like, what, will you buy it? Of course you won't. But it's written in English. Maybe you're gonna stay with this product, like search for it a little bit. It has a lot of advantages, and still brands don't think about it that way.
No, that's a good point. There has to be a full revamp. In my mind, you should do like if a brand is like from a US seller trying to go to Europe, you have and also I guess at the same time, I say Europe, but there's so many different parts of Europe that you would have to actually maybe change, that photo so many different times with so many different variations. Just like we test on Amazon, US sellers, we A/B test this, A/B test that. I can't
Absolutely.
imagine the work that goes into 7 different countries in the Europe region that you're gonna now have to have 7 different variations for
But you
like
know what? Nobody actually does that. Like, I haven't seen. I think like this year only we've worked with probably closer to 100 brands, and nobody changes their images. They change text if they have text on images. Like if it says, like this
interesting.
doorknob is super safe, anti kids, blah blah whatever. They're gonna change that and they're gonna write it in another language, but they're gonna leave the same pictures. I haven't seen anyone use different images in the last 5 years. This is a really important point or you just mentioned, especially if you are selling anything that goes into the bathroom, because bathrooms in the States look very like nothing like bathrooms in, even like doorknobs are quite different in Europe than they are in the States. And if you want to sell something like that, people are going to be like, this is a weird looking bathroom. Like nobody has this type of bathroom. It's something they cannot relate with. You want something that people can relate with, be like, oh my God, my neighbor has this. And then you're like, maybe I should like get this one because it reminds me of my neighbor's bathroom. But it is quite different. Even though, unfortunately, as I said, brands would only change text to this other language, but they would have the images stay the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can stay the same because maybe if you're selling cell phone equipment and you're having like a lifestyle image where people sit on a couch or like out in nature, it's not necessary. But I think when it comes to bathrooms, it's 100% you need to change the images because they're very different than the ones in the States.
That is such an interesting point. I'm glad I brought it because I was really interested in that part of it because I'm like,
yeah,
imagery here is such a storytelling experience, and if you're telling the story from a U.S. point of view, that can't translate well to other countries. What do you think about going back to our first discussion about how the ChatGPT prompt? Where do you see your business kind of? Do you see the prompts that we use for ChatGPT or any other AI? Do you see that affecting your business or being more efficient with like your business as a whole? What's your opinion on that?
So when it comes to my business specifically, the translation thing like localization and all of that, I don't think it's very useful at this point because you would have to double check that. It's very time consuming. Like you can write a prompt to have this text translated to this other language, and you still need to do localization on your own. You
Yeah.
can just like get like word by word translation, which you can get with any basically machine tool because
Yeah.
ChatGPT is a machine tool. And then you would have to optimize it yourself, and you would also have to localize it yourself because ChatGPT doesn't understand context.
Yes.
I'm sure it will at one point, but at this point it doesn't. So if you ask me, and I've tested all of the specific AI tools that are especially targeted to do this, they're not good enough because you're going to get like a mediocre translation that is not optimized for Amazon. You would still need to do keyword research on your own.
Yeah.
You would still need to hire someone to proofread it. So it's time consuming, and it will cost you money at the end of the day. So it's not something that can replace a good job done by somebody else at this point. I think when it comes to copywriting, it does a much better job because ChatGPT is set as it like creates something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And then you can get like a really decent, like mediocre blog or post on LinkedIn and something similar to that. But when it comes to translation, what I've also noticed that these AI tools do, which is not great, is that they take, let's say, a bullet and they don't translate the whole bullet word by word, but they take a little bit of the bullet and they recreate the content and they translate it to another language, which sounds good. But the problem is that you don't know if the whole bullet has been translated and whether it has all the key information that you would want your products to have, which means that you need to hire someone additionally in order to check that. Exactly. So it's not great. But also I think I use it in everyday life and I use it for business as well. It makes my life easier, and it's just those tasks that are very boring, like it cuts the time off, but like my time that I use on those in half, or maybe like done even faster. But when it comes to our business per se, like it's not that useful. I think AI is a great tool for a lot of things. I think people who are not using it are, how to put this nicely, like I think people are using it are behind, definitely behind, and they will stay behind. I think you need to research it in order to stay on top of your game, because I think at one point you will find something, have like a breakthrough that you can definitely like use it like on your business as well. So I'm definitely a fan of AI. I think in time it will become the perfect tool to translate, customize, and but up until that happens or some major update fixes all of the glitches, I don't think it will be worth using to optimize your listings. I think you can use that to check on the keywords. There may be text, inspiration, but I don't think you should only use that tool to fix your listings that are like underperforming. Definitely not.
I like that you said that the AI doesn't give context, and I might go even deeper into culture. I feel like there might be a lack of culture in with the way someone's saying something too. Like, because I'm sure there's a way. I came from I live in South Carolina now, but I'm from California. And the way I would say something maybe to a Californian would mean something completely different to someone in South Carolina, even though we're the same country, but we reference things differently. South Carolina has been just a difference in the way they reference certain things. AI is definitely great for effectiveness, efficiency to get inspiration. But I agree with you where it's not going to be taken over. You can do it, but it won't be the best way to do it. And you're still going to need that translator to double check everything anyways. So why not just have that translator just write it? So, I think that's why I brought it up, because I'm like, there's certain things you can use AI for. Like the reason like we connected was on that prompt for businesses and to promote our businesses. But the AI isn't going to recognize something that's going to make a huge difference when it comes to the imagery or the text in the way and the tone. I think the tone is what's setting it apart right now.
Exactly. As I love how you compared, California with the North Carolina, or like just like not even words. Like, you say book bag in Pennsylvania, you say backpack in New York. Not like only like words and like dialect differences, but also like the tone. Like, for instance, someone from Arkansas or like from Texas will greet you in a certain way. And then in California, like, what was this? Like we would not ever say like, and they're just like so many differences. Anything. It's really interesting that you don't have to leave the US in order to see this. And just gonna imagine what discrepancies are between, let's say, Europe or Japan or Mexico, when you can have it in your own backyard and see how different things are.
Yeah, I think it's just crazy. And I feel like you niching down into this definitely a need in our industry, e-commerce, whether it's Amazon. I mean, you're definitely an Amazon expert, obviously, but even if a Shopify store, could use the same service, because it's the same type of need that is. I know customers that talk to me all the time about, I want to jump into Europe, I want to jump into Japan, and I'm like, you have to understand there's a whole lot more that you're not understanding aside from the financial part of it, that you have to connect. And a lot of them just don't understand that part where it's not just transferring over, clicking that button in Seller Central, like letting Amazon write your listing, that I've seen sometimes. It's like, no, it's not the same thing.
No.
So
I just remembered a really good example. One of my favorite examples is, like how not even if you're like this gigantic brand, it doesn't mean that you're set for success. Like no matter where you go, like where you expand to. And the example I want to talk about is Walmart and Costco. In Japan, Walmart, thousands of stores in Japan, and they're like, well, we're Walmart, people will come, but people did not come because they didn't like it. Japanese people love like locally produced product. They want to go into this like scavenger hunt for discounts, and Walmart is heavily discounted already as it is.
Yeah.
And people just didn't like it. They're like, there's no shopping experience like in this. So Walmart had to pack their bags and they had to go. But then on the other hand, Costco, another U.S. giant, and you're probably thinking like, well, why did Costco was successful? What's different? So Japanese people loved going and buying things like in bulk. It was completely unknown to them, and they were like, oh my God, I'm going there buying 15 bottles of champagne. This is amazing. Even though it was not locally produced food, everything was heavily discounted, but it's buying in bulk, and they were like, wow, this is like a shopping experience, because I've been to Japan last year, and honestly, when you go into the store, it is sort of like a magical experience. And I guess this is what they saw in Costco. And up until this day, Costco has been working fantastically well in Japan. They're still there. Like in Walmart, has packed their bags and they're gone. So that's also very interesting. And it's also only because of the localization thing, like in the culture. I think they also got lucky, but I also think it's because they kind of had like the little thing for their culture, or like it's really, really important that you adjust to the target marketplace. You know, even if you're a US giant, nothing guarantees that you will be successful if you're a very big brand and people will just come to you because you have this name, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'll have to adjust. Being big or small really doesn't.
And I feel like that pays a sort of respect to that culture where you meet them where they're at and not try to force something that's worked over here that's not going to technically work over here. It's you reading into the market, like you said. And I feel like that's a credible story. That's hilarious that Walmart didn't work over there. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's a true story, you know. And also, there's no Starbucks in Australia.
I know that.
Yeah, because Starbucks came there being Starbucks at all, saying like we're conquering this continent. They opened like 500 coffee shops, but they were not offering type of coffee that people prefer in Australia, which is more like closer to the Italian type of coffee with like espressos, ristrettos. Starbucks came there with all the frappuccino, black coffees, all of that. Yeah, and people were just like, I don't want this. Like it was not in their like coffee culture, and Starbucks had to close every single store, and there's no Starbucks in Australia, which is insane because you would think, but Australia speaks English. Like this is how American will think. Like Australia, they speak this weird English.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, this weird English, but you know, why would they love Starbucks? Everyone loves Starbucks. You know, do you have it? I don't know a person that does love Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
In the state, like everyone loves it, but then Australia was just like, no Starbucks for us over here.
That's hilarious. If you're not going to adapt to a culture, you will die. You will not succeed in the e-commerce space, especially
no matter who you are,
no matter what brand you are, no matter how much capital you have or brand presence. If you're not going to adapt to the culture, that culture will not adapt to you. And I feel like that ties in everything that we've said here on this podcast, because it's all about the experience. It's all about knowing your audience and not pushing what you think you know about your product. Wrap up this podcast because that just ties everything that we said together into one piece. We can just literally have this last 5 minutes and we're good. Thank you, Jana, so much for jumping on today. You are a delight, and hopefully one day we can, meet up or whatever at a maybe Prosper. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
I hope you'll have a great pregnancy and a long resting. I pray you get lots of rest, and that's all I can say. But thank you again. I appreciate your time here.
Thank you so much for having me.